It looks like they're talking.
Uh,
Oh.
Representative Steady, can you mute yourself there? We're going to go live. We are live. Okay. Welcome to House Human Services this morning. Thank you for being here. Part of our role in the legislature is to have oversight and accountability discussions with various folks on various topics. And the legislature has provided some significant resources to the Meals on Wheels program over the last few years. And we are interested in understanding essentially what's going on with Meals on Wheels. And we've also heard about, some potential statewide contract or something. I'm not sure too much about the details of it with bank, which is really hard to say. So we just wanted to get an update on what was happening. I'm not sure who's going first. Jason, are you going first?
Yep.
You're first on my list.
Okay.
So
That works.
okay. Welcome to House Human Services. And since we have people here who have not been with us previously, so we will do a quick round of introductions. Do you have a presentation?
I do. Yes.
Have you forwarded it to us?
I have not.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
What happened with Rebecca? She didn't give you the word?
I just asked for it. They were working on it left.
Okay, so while you're doing that and you're getting situated, we will do a round of introductions. So I'm Teresa Wood. I'm from Waterbury. I also serve Bolton, Vielsford, and Huntington.
Hi, I'm Ray Garofano. I live in Essex and I also serve Essex Junction.
Jubilee McGill. I'm from Bridport and also serve Middlebury, New Haven, and Weybridge.
Hi, welcome. I'm Esme Cole and I represent Hartford.
Hi, I'm Zon Eustace. I live in Guilford and also represent Vernon.
Hello, I'm Doug Bishop. I'm one of Colchester's representatives.
Good morning, Dan Noyes, represent Wolcott, Hyde Park, Johnson, and Belvedere.
Representative Steady, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Rep Steady. I'm East Milton, Westford.
Thank you. And then we'll go right around the outside of the
Good to see you.
Brenda Tetro, intern for Representative Noyes. Honora Horton, Executive Director of Hunger Free Vermont. Caitlin Britt, Action Circles. Kim Levinsky, Director of Nutrition and Wellness at the Central Vermont Council on Aging. Virginia Renfro, Wisconsin Renfro Consulting. They're triples too.
Sorry, Morrison in the corner, committee assistant.
And then why don't the folks on screen introduce yourselves while we're at it?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Angela McMahon. I'm the Director of the Adult Services Division in Dale.
And I'm Samantha Shanks, and I'm part of the State Unit on Aging with Jason.
Okay, the floor is yours, Jason.
So I do need to figure a way to.
I just sent you the Zoom link.
Okay.
You need to join that.
Okay.
Maybe Samantha can share.
Oh, Rebecca, we keep score on this.
I know. And it's just like our first majors. I'm usually on time.
I'm just kidding you. I'm just kidding you.
I know. Especially this time of the season.
Yeah, I don't see a Zoom link.
If you just see
Samantha, do you have a presentation? Can you share your screen?
Samantha, I'll forward it to you.
Does she have the Zoom link?
So I said-
Zoom link to Jane.
Okay, I'll do that.
I'll make her copies.
Okay, Samantha, I just sent it to you.
Okay.
And somebody should forward it to Lori as well. And Representative McGuire, why don't you introduce yourself? We've already done introductions.
Forgive me for my tardiness. Representative Eric McGuire from Rutland City, welcome.
Just waiting on it to pop up in my inbox.
And where do you know? Is Cheryl Gilbert going to be joining us?
Yeah.
No. Okay, she's in her place. Okay. Well, Jason, why don't you go ahead and get started? And Samantha, when you get it, you can share your screen, please, and for members and other folks in the public. It'll be posted on our website eventually.
That sounds great.
I am having a little trouble connecting to the internet, so that might be a factor, but I'll just go. All right, so everybody, my name is Jason Palapata. I'm the State Unit on Aging Director with Dale. And today I'm going to talk about the Home Delivered Meals Program and the Global Commitment Investment portion of the Home Delivered Meals Program as well. So some overview and background of the Home Delivered Meals Program. Vermont receives federal funding to provide home delivered meals, also known as Meals on Wheels, to eligible Vermonters age 60 and over. And in Vermont's case, the funding passes through DALE to the area agencies on aging and is then allocated to the many meal providers throughout the state, including senior centers. And in federal fiscal year 2025, Vermont received approximately $1.8 million in Older Americans Act federal funds for home delivered meals. And in that same fiscal year, $1 million in Home Delivered Meals State General Fund was converted to Global Commitment, adding approximately $1.4 million in federal match, totaling about $2.4 million in Global Commitment funding. And in that same fiscal year, FFY 25, 6,913 older Vermonters received 968,112 home delivered meals.
Sorry,
What
that
was-
number of Vermonters? Sorry.
6,913
In 20,
in federal fiscal year 25.
okay.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch the dollar amount from the Older Americans Act.
It's approximately $1.8 million.
Thank you. So, and are there any other additional state funds that go into meals?
Yeah, so there's approximately $286,000 that's also allocated for home delivered meals, which is not part of that global commitment bucket of funding. And every year, the AAAs send out satisfaction surveys for the meals. And I thought I'd share some quality feedback that the participants shared with the AAAs for FFY 25. So basically, across the board, the quality scores that the participants provided averaged around 90% for the meals. And those ranged from good, very good to excellent. So providing a little more detail on the Global Commitment HDM funding, each AAA receives this money in the form of a one-year grant. They must reimburse meal providers at least $6.50 per meal. They must ensure that meals are provided to the most food insecure older Vermonters, such as those unable to cook, unable to obtain groceries, and those who are economically food insecure. And this aligns with federal directives to target those in greatest and social economic need. They also must report the number of participants with 3 or more activities of daily living needs. So examples of those are bathing, dressing, and toileting. And they also must report on the number of individuals who have 3 or more instrumental activities of daily living needs. And that includes preparing meals, shopping, and transportation. And they also need to report data on those who are at or below the federal poverty level. And they must submit this reporting to the State Unit on Aging quarterly.
So Jason, how is that done? You know, so do they do an annual assessment? How is that? What's the mechanism for gathering that information? And do they do it for the total amount, or do they only do it for those meals that are funded by the Older Americans Act, since that's where the federal requirements stem from?
It's the total amount. And the data is collected at initial assessment to determine eligibility for home delivered meals and at annual reassessment.
And those assessments are done by whom?
In some cases, the AAA staff do them themselves. I think there are some AAA regions where the senior centers or meal sites might do them kind of in collaboration with the AAAs and provide the AAAs that information. I'm not sure on which AAAs do what, but yeah, that's like the general kind of system of how that works.
And is there a database, or is this like paper forms, or, I mean, I'm just trying to gauge, the level of workload if we have, 6,000, almost 7,000 people, accessing this. That's, doing reassessments on 7,000 people every year is a pretty big job. So I'm just wondering how that is done. And I think it is probably relevant to understand if it's done by the, local meal providers or the AAA, since the meal providers don't actually receive any money to do that. AAAs do.
Yeah, I think in some cases, like a senior center might collect that information via paper form. And I think in other cases, the AAAs might gather that information. Like, for example, if someone calls a AAA to try to get on the home delivered meals program, and that intake staff tries to determine eligibility, then they'll go through the eligibility requirements and record that data electronically. Again, I think it's a bit of a mixed bag depending on the region. Like I know there's one particular AAA that is trying to work closely with senior centers to kind of get away from like the paper piece of it and try to acquire more of that kind of upfront assessment into the AAA versus having the senior centers do it. So there's some momentum going on there to kind of tighten that up a little bit, more centrally.
Go ahead, Representative Cole.
And on that subject of forms, I've heard some feedback, and I know, tracking and data is really important with, limited funds, of course. But I've heard some feedback that some of the forms are burdensome and duplicative, and I think Chair Wood was kind of alluding to where the burden of that collection is taking place, and if it's happening in the right place and what we're asking of senior centers versus what is being asked of the AAAs. So yeah, I think I'd like to better understand the nature of what forms are required, how often, and by whom, and if separate forms are needed from the senior centers versus what is being asked of the AAAs. I have other questions, but maybe I'll just start with the forms piece and the burden of that.
Yeah, I think the AAAs could speak better to that. I do believe that when the intake referral assistant staff at the AAAs collect information from any older adult who might call up that's interested in several types of services, I do believe that in their intake process, they collect a number of pieces of information to determine eligibility for any number of programs. So I don't believe it's necessarily just one assessment that's determining HDM eligibility and another determining this type of eligibility. I think there's a considered effort to collect data to determine eligibility for a number of different programs.
And for the number of different programs, I know there's a little bit of a distinction between the Concord meals and then Meals on Wheels. And I think the burden of the forms for the Concord meals, none of that is going to the AAAs, if I'm understanding correctly, and all of it is going to the senior centers. Is that right?
I think in some regions that is the case, and that's something that Samantha and I are going to continue to work with the AAAs on to make sure to try to ease that burden with respect to, having senior centers collect that information. But I think overall, it does need to be a collaborative effort
Yeah.
because the senior centers ultimately are like on the front lines.
Definitely,
meeting
yeah.
people.
Yeah, but I'm glad we'll dive further into that conversation about how to better streamline the practice.
Mhm.
I have a separate question about the way funds are distributed. No.
I think we're gonna get
Okay.
to that, so then why don't we, wait till then when we do
Okay,
that.
wonderful.
Hopefully at some point in time, we will see the presentation either on our website or on the screen.
Yeah, sorry, I'm still waiting. I'm refreshing my online email and my email app, but it hasn't come through yet.
Well, Jason was having problems connecting to the internet here, so it might have gotten lost in cyberspace. I don't know.
Yeah, I see a VTLC secure and the VTL,
CT Ledge.
the VT Ledge. Okay. So connect. Network security key.
Oh, no.
You want to be on the guest.
You want to be on the public one.
Public one, okay. State House Public.
Yeah.
I can try sending. So Samantha, I just sent it to you again. It looks like I'm online, so.
Okay.
Everybody for your patience on that. Okay. Sent, so you should get it.
He's got it now. Okay.
All right.
And they can send it to you. Samantha, will you make sure to send it to Lori? Or, yeah. Yeah. Send it to somebody so that we can get it here. After you go ahead and share your screen.
Samantha, I'm on the 5th slide, the last slide. There you go. Perfect, okay. So,
I was just gonna say, it'd probably be good for you to just start over, to be honest. Because it's helpful for us to be able to see the numbers rather than just hear them.
sure, so Samantha, can you go to slide 2? So this is what I was talking about earlier regarding an overview of the HDM program and some of the background. At the top here, just kind of level setting. And then middle bottom here, these are the FFY 25 numbers. So the 1.8 million in OAA federal funds. And then talk about the 1 million in the state GF that's converted to the global commitment to get that approximately 1.4 million in federal match, totaling that 2.4 million in the global commitment funding. And then we got the numbers below for the Vermonters receiving meals and the total meals for FFY 25.
So with the approximately 300,000 in state funds that goes into it, it totals up to about 4.5 million total. That's with my little fancy math there. I think you said
286,000.
Yeah, I just rolled it up to 300,000 to get which is actually a pretty significant increase over the last few years. Given that the state didn't put any funding into that. And I'm remembering the language that we had around distribution, and I don't know if you're going to get to distribution about how you calculate how the state and federal funds through Global Commitment and the OAA are distributed, how you determine how much goes to each region. Are you going to cover that in your presentation along the way?
I wasn't necessarily going to cover the distribution. I do believe the Global Commitment funding bucket of funds is allocated to the AAAs according to the state, the interstate funding formula that we use to basically, it looks at the different demographics and population numbers of older adults and some other factors in each region to determine the appropriate amount of funds to each region. So for example, individuals 85 and over in certain regions, there's more weight to providing a certain percentage of funds to regions who might have more individuals who are much older. So there's it's like a rather complicated formula, but that's the gist of it based on demographics and population numbers. And we distributed the Global Commitment funds according to that same formula.
Go ahead, Representative Paul.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you track the number of folks who maybe call and inquire, whether it's to the AAAs or the senior center themselves, about participating in Meals on Wheels and may or may not be accepted or rejected into the program based on their first, answering the first three questions. I think you're kind of just like, if you don't answer the first three questions right, you're like kind of disconnected or something. And I don't think we track that, like the amount of interest. But I'd love to hear more on your side of things, if maybe I'm wrong and maybe we do actually track that, because I think getting a better sense of demand could be helpful in determining the best possible strategy for funding formula. Because of course, knowing the amount of older Vermonters in region is really important too, but people have all kinds of varieties of different needs and levels of interest in the program. So I think that could be valuable information, but I'm just curious more about what happens when somebody calls on the phone and maybe they answer those three questions or more just to start. And if they're connected with another provider, if you can't meet that need, or if they're just, the relationship is kind of ends there.
The State Unit on Aging does not track that data. It currently does not require that data from the AAAs. I'm not sure if the AAAs internally do that, but the expectation is that if someone is calling for assistance and home delivered meals comes up, and for some reason they're not eligible, that the AAA will then proceed to have a deeper conversation with that individual to determine if there are other services that they might benefit from, qualify for, et cetera.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
So Samantha, the next slide 3. So this is the quality feedback I was referring to from the satisfaction survey. So as you can see, like I was saying earlier, across the board, 90% satisfaction rate for those who were surveyed. And the feedback ranges from good, very good to excellent.
Yeah, it's a gradient. I mean, all of those are not exactly the same. Good, very good, and excellent. There are differences. Representative Cole, looked like you had a question.
I do a little bit. I'm just wondering, I'd love more information about who was surveyed and how many folks, and also just sort of I don't want to say conflict of interest, but these meals are not guaranteed, obviously. And as budgets are tightening and demand, I think, is increasing, there's a lot at stake here. And so I just want to make sure that I think it would be easier to answer a survey if that wasn't on the line, maybe. I just want to make sure that older Vermonters completing these surveys don't think that this could impact their ability to continue access to these meals. I mean, I know that that's a stretch, but I think there may have been some feedback that that was
Okay,
an emotional concern.
I can see that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. So Samantha, next slide. So this is what I was talking about earlier regarding the expectations within each of the grants, the $6.50 per meal minimum reimbursement rate. The focus on targeting the most food insecure individuals and economically food insecure as well, aligning with federal directives, and the importance of collecting the information on individuals who have 3 or more EDL needs and 3 or more IADL needs.
So how did you come up with 650?
It's not an exact science. About 2 to 3 years ago, the SUA ran some calculations to determine, what would be a decent minimum reimbursement rate that the AAAs could provide meal providers that would strike a decent balance between, the ability to continue providing meals, without having too much of a meal reimbursement rate, given the limited funding, obviously, while at the same time, doing the best we could to keep those meal providers, sustained and viable while giving them some sort of decent meal reimbursement rate.
And just to follow up on what this includes, the $6.50 payment per meal. So that is including paperwork reimbursement, right? Like in the administrative costs of doing the meals, the prep of the meal, the volunteer drivers that we have, coordinating all of that. Beyond just the meal itself, which $6.50, I think it's just want to make sure I understand everything that $6.50 is intended to cover.
So the meal reimbursement rate itself strictly pertains to reimbursing the providers for the meal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the cost of those other factors surrounding the meal that are necessary in order to make the meal happen. How are those accounted for, or who pays that cost? Contributes rather.
Yeah. So the volunteer driver time is included in the meal costs. Data that we have available.
And then the facilitation, congregation meals, setting up and hosting in the senior center. So that's all. Those are all additional costs that are in theory accounted for in the $6.50 as well, or including the paperwork, onboarding, making sure that the whole thing happens. I'm just curious, following the money to make this happen. Is that the extent of, or is there other money that's going to the whole process, of getting these meals to the seniors?
Yeah, so AAAs can use federal funding to support meal providers with those other aspects of providing meals. AAAs can also use the federal funding, to support their own administrative costs and program management costs when they support the meal providers as well.
And I appreciate that. And so you say they can. I am curious, what is the pattern? What is the trend in Vermont? How much money is going, if they can, how much is?
I'm just going to say, maybe more specifically, what does the department put in its grants about allowable administrative costs for this program?
So the only grant per se that the SUA has with the AAAs is the Global Commitment HDM funding grant. And for this current fiscal year, there is no allotment for administrative costs or administrative costs for the AAAs. For these particular global commitment grants, the money is for meal reimbursement.
Exclusively. And what about the Older Americans? How do you deliver the Older Americans Act money?
So the Older Americans Act money, it goes back to that interstate funding formula. So it's a certain percentage of administrative money that can go to the AAAs. And it's broken down into the different like Title III services, like case management and things of that nature. And that's all distributed according to that formula based on like the demographics that I spoke about earlier.
And so, but there's no grant. They're just.
No, it's right, correct. It's no grant. It's money that
Just payment made by Dale to them, or does it not go through Dale?
it does go through Dale. I believe it is on a quarterly basis. I would have to check with the business office on that because they're in the nitty gritty when it comes to working with the AAAs on providing that funding. Yep.
Seems odd, to be honest, that there's no grant. Even when pass throughing of federal funds, there's generally grants associated with that. That seems odd to me. To be honest, we don't hear that in any other place.
Okay.
Because, there's obviously rules about how you use those federal funds and the department's accountable for it. So I would think there would be a desire to have some sort of grant agreement about those federal funds. I understand that's not currently done, but it's peculiar. Go ahead, Representative McGuire. Oh, excuse me, Representative Noyes had a question first, and then Representative McGuire.
So just for full transparency, my other job is working with the Vermont Association of Senior Centers and Meal Providers in the summertime. So that's what I do when I'm not here. So I do interact with many of the providers of the Meals on Wheels program. So thanks for being here. And I just wondered if you could talk about when you talk about the formula, it's looking at the population of individuals based on age. Do other states look at the need? So in other words, looking at poverty rates or nutrition, like, are we making sure that we're able to provide funding to sites based on the need in that community, not necessarily kind of an age? And can you speak to, is there waiting lists for people that come in?
I can pull up that formula right now and talk about it. Let me just, because there are other factors other than age and age range that do go into the formula. So let me just pull it up.
Because, and I know with the ADLs, I often think of my own family and nutrition. I think about like the easy thing for dinner is to eat some cookies, right? To someone, right? To eat ice cream instead of making the nutrition available that is healthy for even people that maybe have the capacity as they age. Is it do they cook for themselves? Do they actually think about that, the nutritional aspect, and then what impact does that have on an individual's health and ability? I know it's really hard to say like, okay, we can't be like standing over someone's shoulder and saying, hey, you probably shouldn't eat that ice cream for dinner. But making nutritious food available to individuals as easy as possible, making it the low barrier is something I always think about. And so it's not really a question, it's more just.
So the formula factors in age ranges 60 to 74, 75 to 84, 85 plus, like I mentioned earlier, and there's a little more weight to that 85 plus. 60 and over, factoring in poverty level, limited English, minority, and living alone.
So living alone probably captures what I was talking about. Okay.
Representative McGuire?
Thank you for being here today. Just to couple of the chair's points of the oddness of there's no grant. So how is the relationship governed without a grant? What's the governance for the reporting other than word of mouth? I find this. I've never heard of what's governing. My question is, what's governing the relationship between the state and the provider if there's no grant agreement?
Yeah, so twice a year, the AAAs need to provide the State Unit on Aging area plan updates. And those updates include progress on goals and objectives that they're working on that, from this from the funding. And they also need to provide a yearly report that we then send to the federal government that provides all the data, all the expenditures, all the people that they've served, under which program, et cetera, et cetera. That they have to report on, they have to provide more detail on any discrepancies from FFY to FFY of like more or less than 10%. So they have to, that's a federal requirement as well. So, there's some oversight there in that respect.
But what's the documents that are used to govern that relationship? If you're not using a grant agreement, those grant agreements will govern that relationship in regards to the expectations of the recipient receiving and what the requirements are to report back on how the funds are being utilized. Without that level of agreement, then what's the document that's being used to govern this?
Yep. So as part of the State Plan on Aging, there are built-in assurances. So it's a number of sections that talk about what the AAAs need to do, what their expectations are as far as using the money appropriately, the different populations that they're expected to serve, priority populations and things of that nature. And that's kind of the master document, so to speak, all those assurances that the AAAs need to abide by. And I can certainly share that state plan with you.
Yeah, it's that's helpful. I think I know what you're receiving now is feedback to take back that we're familiar with the state plan on aging. We reviewed it when we passed our Vermont law, and that's not a contractual agreement between the state and the provider. And typically, such an agreement would reference the requirements in the state plan, but the state plan would not be the only document, if you will. So that's our feedback. So we don't need to sort of like pound that in.
Yeah, well, just to give another example. So in the state plan that I'm currently drafting to begin October 1, 2026, the next 4-year state plan, each AAA has a shared set of results-based accountability measures that are both quantitative and qualitative in nature. And they need to report those to the SUA. And I mean, they have them now. So for example, like one of them refers to like case management. So the AAA case managers, using Title IIIB funding, need to report to the SUA twice a year on the clients that they're working with that have a particular set of goals, like what those goals are, progress on those goals, how many people are meeting those goals, things of that nature.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about this part anymore. I want to make sure that we get to other witnesses because we only have till noon, okay? And we need to kind of, we can move on your presentation. You didn't get to the last slide, and I think you have one more before that. So I want to make sure that we were able to hear from Central Vermont.
Okay.
Yep, so
As I change it, I'll add two just super quick. We do have an OAA policy and procedure manual on the Dale website too that outlines requirements for this programming. So like if someone is using OAA funds to reimburse meals, our OAA manual that's online outlines what metrics those meals need to meet in order to qualify for OAA funding. So there are guidelines in that document as well.
Yep, appreciate all that. That does not negate the need for a grant agreement, just saying. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so for the last slide here, just sharing the final numbers for the Home Delivered Meals Global Commitment FFY 25 grant cycle. 4,422 older Vermonters received 351,648 meals. And I thought it would be good to share where we're at for this current fiscal year with the Q1 data.
Is that in addition to the data you reported before, or out of that 6,913 of that 4,422? Okay, so Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
So for Q1 thus far this year, 3,039 older Vermonters received 86,000 home delivered meals with this funding. 23% had 3 or more ADL needs. 82% had 3 or more IADL needs. 42% were at or below the federal poverty level. And like I mentioned earlier, there were no funds allocated for administrative costs for this grant cycle.
Right. Any final questions for this witness?
Just, are you seeing or hearing any increase in the demand or the need for home delivered meals?
But yeah, you asked about waiting list. I didn't hear. a
Yeah,
response
just
about
really
waiting.
thinking about access to nutrition based on what's going on in the economy right now. Are you seeing and or hearing about? It's not really quantitative, data, but just how are you seeing an increase in the need? I know, thinking of food shelves and access to nutrition for this population.
I'm noticing an increase in demand for therapeutic meals. I can't say for certain whether or not I am noticing an increase in demand for meals in general. I honestly can't say that like based on what I know right now about the situation. But I will say that there's an increase in demand and interest for therapeutic meals, or diabetic friendly, renal friendly, things of that nature.
Last question.
Okay. And I feel like one way to track that increase in interest would be to track the number of calls, like that maybe aren't even, and to continue to make sure that they have care in some form or another. But and my question is about the goals and objectives that we're measuring and what they're presenting in these two, I think you said, biannual reports from the AAA's to DL. And I'm just, are these goals and objectives designed in partnership with the senior centers, or are they kind of like monetary metrics, like need this, cap and like include that? I don't know. I just feel like it could be a little bit more. Who's having control over what the goals are?
It depends on if the senior centers are involved in the actual goals or not. So for example, one of the results-based accountability goals for the upcoming federal fiscal year for the state plan is increasing participation in evidence-based exercise programming, which obviously would involve senior centers. So that obviously needs to involve collaboration with senior centers, and getting them on board, and working closely with them to make sure that they have the capacity to, continue providing this programming. Others, not so much, like case management goals, for example. That's all strictly done by the AAA, so that wouldn't involve senior centers.
So I think the question is more about when you're developing a state plan and you're developing goals, and each agency, I'll just reference sort of like the designated agencies do, they have a requirement to go out and survey, work with other organizations in the field, and then they compile that data, and then that becomes their report back up to the state. And is that something similar that you require the AAAs to do? So when you're formulating goals for a state plan, it shouldn't just be the goals of the AAAs, it should be the goals of the people in the community that they serve.
So the AAAs are required to do their own regional assessments to create their own area plans. And then in turn, as part of the State Union on Aging's statewide assessment, we look at those area plans as well.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Okay, now we're going to hear from Central Vermont. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Kim Lipinski here. I'm the Director of Nutrition and Wellness at the Central Vermont Council on Aging. Thank you for having me. I did distribute a couple of documents that I think everyone has. If anyone would like a paper copy, I did bring some paper copies for anyone.
Good.
Okay. first, I will keep it brief since we have just a little bit of time. First, I do want to address a couple of questions that you brought up that I think that I can address quickly. First, about the forms that you had asked about. Here at the Central Vermont Council on Aging, we do all of the intakes for home delivered meals at the Council on Aging, and that is to decrease the burden on our senior centers so that they aren't having to do that administrative work for us. It also it makes sure that anyone who comes and asks for home delivered meals is truly eligible, so that we aren't having people getting home delivered meals who aren't actually eligible. And then the other thing that I would like to talk about is when people call and ask for, you were talking about, what about people that call and then maybe they aren't eligible? There's very few people that call that are not eligible. That doesn't happen very often. It's really rare. But if someone calls and they aren't eligible for a home delivered meal, we refer them to our community meals, which are called congregate meals. And we really encourage them to go there primarily for socialization, because we take isolation very seriously, social isolation very seriously. And we want people to come out and go to our congregate meals. And so we provide them with a schedule of where those congregate meals are, because they're not just in their own community, but they're in all of our communities. So it's possible to go every day of the week to a congregate meal in any community in Vermont. And we give them
assistance for transportation.
Transportation is very problematic, I will tell you. And I think everybody in the room knows that.
Yeah.
There's very little funding for transportation, and transportation is really limited to people that need to go to medical appointments and critical needs. So transportation to a congregate meal is going to fall to the bottom, really low on the list, unfortunately, but that is the case. Meal satisfaction surveys, I'd also like to, you had asked about the meal satisfaction surveys. We go to great effort to make sure that they understand that this will not affect their service. And we send them a letter, a cover sheet, a letter with the survey that explains that. But we take it, at CVCOA, we take it one step further than that. And we include some questions on there that we ask them, what is your favorite meal? And what is your least favorite meal? And that, by including those questions, we have increased the response rate of our surveys tremendously. People love those questions. And by including those questions, we let them understand that they are participants in this program. Like, they really can help us craft our menus. And we do. We really pay attention to those surveys. And we build in the responses to those surveys into our menus. And it really, really does help, and people enjoy that. And I personally read every single survey, and I reach out to those people with that give us this feedback. I call them, I write letters to them, I thank them for their responses, and talk to them about that. And then I also want to talk to you about the work that we've done at CVCOA on our meal programs. I've been there for 4 years now, and I'll be really frank with you, and I'll tell you, when I started, the menus did have Franks and beans on them. They weren't necessarily the greatest menus. And I came to CVCOA with the very specific goal to bring therapeutic meals to our menus. And I'm very proud to say that we now have 14 different types of therapeutic meals that people can get in Central Vermont Council on Aging's meal programs. But this took 4 years to develop. So the first thing I had to do was develop relationships with every one of these. We have 14 meal sites, 14 kitchens that are putting out meals. We do about 1,200 meals a day in our kitchens. When I was first hired, there were not good relationships with our kitchens. It was very much an us and them situation between the AAA and the kitchens. And I will say it took about 2 years, the first 2 years, developing relationships with the directors of the meal sites, and most importantly, with the cooks. So the cooks are probably the most important people that I work with. The cooks are the ones that are doing the really hard work, making those meals, putting those meals out. They're the ones that are in there at 6 a.m. The cooks get there before the directors get there in the morning, So I really elevated those cooks to a level that they deserve to be at and gave them training, you know, in how to prepare a meal for a diabetic. How do you prepare a meal for renal, soft foods, pureed, minced and moist, soft and bite size, all these specialized meals that our people need, you know? And now they have confidence that they can provide these meals for our older adults because these meals are really, really important that they get these meals. Anyways, so these relationships were the basis before you can even bring training in, you know, for folks. Then the other thing I want you to know is that what we're doing with these therapeutic meals in Central Vermont is groundbreaking. I just came back from a week-long conference in Chicago for Food as Medicine, a national conference. I went there to learn. It turned out I went there to teach. What we're doing here is not being done in almost most of the country. We are doing groundbreaking work here in Vermont with therapeutic meals, and I'm really proud of it, and we should all be proud of it. And the other thing that's happening here, or I should say is not happening, wait lists. We're one of the only states in the country that does not have a wait list in Vermont. We are serving our needs here in Vermont for Meals on Wheels. What we're not doing is funding it. Okay, so we are serving the people that need the meals. Okay, so when people call CVCOA and they say they need a meal, we can give them a meal. But our meal sites are having to fundraise for about half the cost of the meal. So the AAAs, we're giving them money for the meals. Yes, we are. We're passing the money through. We're giving them money. Okay, and we're giving them all that we can, all that we're getting, all that we can. Of course, with some administrative costs kept. But it's not covering the full cost of the meal. And if you look at our meal cost analysis, you can see what those meal costs are. So when we ask for funding, it's not that we're asking for funding to serve more Vermonters. It's that we're asking for funding to cover the full cost of the Vermonters that we're already serving. So we're really putting a burden on our meal sites. And that's what VASCAMP is talking about, right? And that's what Maureen White at VASCAMP is talking about. And I know that you talked to Maureen, you know? And I
Talks to me.
okay, all right. So
To be clear.
and I fully support my meal sites and my meal site directors. I have wonderful relationships with every single one of them, you know, and I give them everything I can all the time, you know. But I want to make it really, really, really clear that they work so hard in fundraising to make up that other half of the cost of the meal. So we don't have Vermonters that are going without. We don't have wait lists. And that's a really wonderful thing. So we are serving our Vermonters. Now, what we probably could do is get the word out a little better, because I do believe there are Vermonters that could use Meals on Wheels that aren't asking for it. So that's a messaging problem, though. So that's something else. So there's a lot of people who have a misconception about Meals on Wheels, for example, that don't understand that it's not tied to income. It's a need-based program, you know.
One of the things that we were wondering about is there some move afoot to have some statewide contract with a meal provider, to deliver, I think, frozen meals?
Yes, but that's not with CVCOA.
So, well, statewide would include CVCOA.
With the other AAAs, not including CVCOA.
So the other four AAAs.
Meaning Southwest Senior Solutions, AgeWell, and the Northeast Freedom.
So AgeWell has been doing this for a while. I'm familiar with that.
And Southwest.
Southwest has as well.
Yes.
I guess I'm curious, and we had invited the bank person here, but she didn't come, to understand what the impact on that is for meal sites in those locations.
I think that Cheryl from Bank would speak to that better, or
Yeah,
someone.
no, I know. We
Joelle.
invited her and we're told that you were the person.
That
was.
I'm probably not the best person to talk about the
Since you're not
contract.
participating in that, right?
I haven't been privy to the details of that contract.
Virginia, do you have?
Well, I think that the reason I
Just say your name for the
Oh,
record.
sorry, Virginia Redford, Zaxton Ledger, that Kim was asked to come is because of the work that she actually does with the providers. As far as the statewide contract, I know nothing about that, and I think that if that is a discussion that's going on, I don't think that we have any idea that that's happening. I know that AgeWell has had that for a long time, and I don't know if they've been having those conversations with Dale. But we just felt that, with Kim, with the work that she's doing on the ground.
Yeah, no, excellent work and I will, I hear from my local, we have somebody, Angela's back on, thank you.
Yeah.
Angela, can you answer that question? Jason's left and we should have asked that question while he was in the witness chair.
Yes, and I do think that a representative of Vank is best suited to answer the question, but I can tell you that what we have heard from Vank is that there are existing contracts with this vendor that 4 out of 5 of the area agencies already have. And so this statewide contract would replace the individual contracts. So it's not to expand where those meals are being delivered, but to have efficiency across the individual contracts, to have one contract with a shared vendor.
So it's not necessarily replacing any service that is currently being done by a local meal provider.
That's our understanding. They all had individual contracts, and the negotiation of the contract annually will be done once. And they're foreseeing some savings across the state by having one negotiated contract with the vendor.
Okay. And so I was familiar with AgeWell. I didn't realize the other 3 also had been utilizing this service before.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
the other 3, everybody except for Central Vermont has utilized this service before.
Correct.
And do they also utilize regular meal sites, like with senior centers or other meal sites, the other 4? I know AgeWell does not, but I didn't know about the others.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a combination.
Yes.
Okay.
My understanding, Northeast Kingdom has only one contract. So that they have the meal providers, but they have just recently, I think, because a kitchen went away or something, and they want to make sure to continue to get their meals.
Okay, well, that is helpful information. Thank you. I think Dan had his hand up first.
I know you've been working with some videos and helping.
Oh, yeah.
folks with, and could you just take like 30 seconds or 45 seconds to talk about that work?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's really good. And
Oh, thank you. Yes, so we're working with a professional television studio, and we actually have the former sous chef of the French Laundry of the Napa Valley as our training chef, doing training videos for soft food production meals. And we're expanding on that to do other therapeutic meal training videos. And we're making them available for professional chefs in nursing homes, hospitals, Meals on Wheels providers, anyone that's commercially preparing therapeutic meals. So we have the first 4 videos have just been produced. But we're also, on May 30th, we're going back in the studio. We're producing those same videos for soft food production. These are for people that have swallowing disorders and need very special foods. We're doing the same videos for caregivers. These are really important. So when people go to their doctor and they get a diagnosis and they're told, you need to have pureed foods or soft foods. And if you don't, you're going to aspirate and get pneumonia and you could die. I mean, there's dire circumstances if you don't get the right diet, and you have to cook for your partner or yourself these special foods. There is no training in this. There is nothing available to you. You can get a cookbook, And that's about it. So we're making videos so that you can then go to our website, CBCOA's website, and learn how to prepare these foods for your caregiver or for yourself. And when I was just at this national summit this week, I was just sharing about this. Everyone in the country wants these. Everyone. They do not exist. It's just nowhere. This is groundbreaking work that we're doing. So we're doing them for the chefs that are in nursing homes, hospitals, and Meals on Wheels programs, but we're also doing them for the caregivers. And yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for following up on some of my questions too, and for highlighting the amazing accomplishments that you've had in Central Vermont. And I think something that I've been thinking about all year about this is, and your testimony kind of highlighted it too, is the discrepancy between different regions of the state and what's being offered. And so I'm curious if you have feedback on how to make it more consistent.
Yeah, I do. I have applied for congressional directed spending to advance exactly what I'm doing in Central Vermont across the state. So we'll see what happens.
And money, of course, would be critical to make that happen. But I'm curious, like from a structural standpoint.
I've written a plan. I do have a plan.
So I guess this all.
There's not time to go over that right now, but
Well,
yeah.
I know. I feel like there's a big disconnect in the transparency of strategy here, because this is some of this is state directed in our policy, and then we have plans coming up here and there, and contracts here and there, and it's just we know of some area agency on aging recently bought a new building in an area that doesn't even have a senior center. Just really total mishmash of how people are choosing to use funds, and we are supposed to have oversight of that. And it's just I'm like trying to find the information, and it's all scattered everywhere. So I mean, that's a wonderful, beautiful example of your taking leadership, and I really appreciate that, because the impact would be profound on our seniors. But I think we need to really put our heads together about making this a really more transparent and straightforward sort of plan, a strategy plan, so we all can achieve that wonderful goal that you have.
I completely agree with you, and I would appreciate any support that I could get. And I think that the formation of VANC is going to be transformative for that, and could really help bring all of the AAAs together and form some cohesion.
Thank you.
Yeah, not really a question. You mentioned the plan, and I know we don't have time today, but when it's ready for more public viewing or private viewing, I'd love to take a look at it.
It's something, it's just something, I don't know, you could probably tell I'm very ambitious. And I work on, nothing holds me back, and I work on things whether there's support for it or not. I'm gonna just work away, and
I'd love to take a look. I'm sure others would as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I have Vermonters, the older adults in Vermont are close to my heart, and I have their best interests in mind. And therapeutic meals are really what I'm all about. Serving people with chronic conditions the best food they can have to support them to stay at home and live the best lives they can. That's really where my interests lie.
Another follow-up from Representative McGill.
More, just not even a question. I was just this conversation. I just wanted to point back to something we've talked a bit about. I've introduced bills, kind of both bienniums, and what both of you have pointed to is what about those folks who need support, with hot meals or prepared meals, or and they're making that choice between whether to do ice cream. It's just the option for our state to opt into the SNAP restaurant meals program, which would allow seniors to use their SNAP dollars if they so choose at participating restaurants to get a hot, nutritious meal.
I have something to say about that. Yeah. The Older American Act governs the the contents of the Meals on Wheels meals to make them a highly nutritious meal with requirements for protein, whole grains, vegetables, and fruit.
Yeah.
And a restaurant meal is not going to give you that. A restaurant meal is going to be high in sodium.
This is, I mean, there's different ways to design it, and this just gives people choices. This is not a thing that competes with Meals on Wheels.
No, but my concern
It's
is
giving folks options
Okay.
where if they're someone who is on SNAP,
Yeah.
and if their body isn't cooperating and they can't cook a meal that day
Oh, I
or do that, it allows them to, participate in restaurants, and we can design the program any way we want, where
Oh, okay.
only eligible items are nutritious. There's a lot of flexibility.
So they're not going to McDonald's, in other
Yeah,
words.
some states.
Okay, that's my fear.
Some states have chosen to do that.
Okay.
But I always think we give folks a choice.
Yeah, I agree with
This
choice.
is, and I think even, giving
I'm all
folks
for
that
choice.
choice.
All for
And I'd be happy to give you more
Yeah.
information about the program offline.
Thank you.
It sounds like
Indulging
you
you.
two should yeah.
Yeah.
work on this.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's a lot of great information, and hopefully next biennium, we can make some progress on those bills. Are there any more questions? I know we're kind of into the lunch hour. Really appreciate Kim, your testimony and everything. Thank you for being so innovative and ambitious in serving older Vermonters. Really grateful. So committee, we are on break till 1:15 when we're going to pick up S278 and hear testimony on an act relating to cannabis.